we we're going back this weekend. I showed you that deer we shot the other day, or that I did, but
Yeah.
like you said, I didn't know my daughter hadn't shot a bunch, so she got to. I took her out from school, or not took her out, but after school, me and her, and she shot like 10 or 12 times in those. So now she's ready. So she's jacked up, ready to go. So we're gonna go back again this weekend, go hunting.
She's
But
a stud. 10 times is all you need when you're a kid. Like you're
oh
pro
yeah,
at that point. So
well, it was 5 or 6, and then she was like, "I think I'll be done." And then, like, after 6, she's like, "Okay, 2 more." And then we got to, like, or no, she goes, "1 more." We got to 7, and she's like, "Okay, 3 more." And I was like, "Cool." And so it
that's
was good.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
I love it.
all right. Well, I got this. There's a lot. I know you don't have much time. I'm glad you're
That's
joining
all
with
right.
me. I had one of the best times ever at Table Rock with you and James and Ish and Jamie and all that stuff. And of course, uh, you know, I got to bed one night at like 12 something talking to you about all that, because man, I find it so interesting. And if anyone doesn't know, so I'm gonna let you do it. You'll do a better job, but I want you kind of do a little background from your fishing to your filming to now where you're at now with Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh man, I'll make it quick. Yeah, I can do that. So I left. I was working full time in law enforcement. Still do that actually a little bit part time, but started a media company. So I was out like filming and doing media and marketing and that type of stuff. And then skipped about 10 years and a whole lot of filming and a bunch of stuff, and ended up working now at Black Rifle Coffee. On the fishing side, that's a long story too, but I grew up in the mountains in North Carolina. So I grew up kind of trout fishing, and we had bass and stuff, but I was too poor to really like own a boat. So it was hard to access, the lake. So we fish a little from the bank, but I started doing a competitive fly fishing stuff, and ended up, crazy story, but fishing on the U.S. fly fishing team, which like you have to qualify for it and all that type of business. And then coached the U.S. youth team, and like served on a bunch of international boards, and did a bunch of kind of policy for all the international stuff. And yeah, it was like probably 6 or 7 years of that. And then like 3 or 4 years, probably 4 years ago, work got busier, and I kind of started focusing more on, I just didn't have the fire for it like I used to. So, fly fishing, a guy said one time, there's more model train collectors than there are fly fishermen. So it was like, I love fly fishing, but it felt like there was a lot of unnecessary drama that I just wasn't super about. So I kind of checked out of that scene. Still fish a bunch, but now I'm doing kind of everything: bass fishing or salt water, whatever I can get my hands on.
But now what do you like? Now you do your official title, I guess, is at Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh, yeah. So I'm the director of all the strategic partnerships and all the influencers. So, as the name implies, like all the partners, like B2B business partners we have, and then all of our influencer list of people. So I manage that and kind of incorporate all the ad campaigns or marketing or campaigns and initiatives or whatever we're doing. I make sure that it goes out to our network, and we're doing the right thing and telling the right story.
So what's crazy is, and why I wanted to have you on, and I know a lot of people. I don't know who's going to find when I say this interesting. I would talk to you 10 times more than I would talk to just a regular a fisherman, like even a professional fisherman or anything, because your perspective on stuff is so I wouldn't say it's different, but you're you're definitely non-endemic, but you
Mm-hmm.
have a background in the fishing side of it, so you kind of at least get both sides. I'd say so many non-endemics have zero idea about the fishing side, so you have that going for you. But man, you have done a job with, I mean, a job with Black Rifle Coffee. So I didn't talk to you about this, but when I made my like social media posts, I'm like, man, if I think maybe some people in the fishing industry might need to take notes on this conversation. You might not want to give this stuff away, but I was like taking it up because I just think there's some things out there that I think are way misconceptions about what's going on in the industry.
I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'd say it's true. And like, honestly, we'll get into it today, I'm sure, but marketing, there's no real secrets in marketing. It's it's all frequency and reach, and it's all authenticity. So there's not really a magic bullet. It's just being disciplined and, executing, really. So we can certainly get into it.
Well, I was like, there were certain things in our conversations that caught my ear, and is like, I still think there's an old school mentality when it comes to the marketing side of fishing, or the marketing side also with what people expect, right? Of both sides of the, like, from the fishermen and the companies, and then the way, and there's a lot there, and the way they view numbers. And so one of those was, and that's a lot there, but I just think I got into it the other day after I made a little video about me not weighing in. And I think everyone understood it except a couple people. And I was going, man, they got caught up on me, not just a couple, like, that I should walk across the stage for 15 seconds, and that was going to be this, like, big deal breaker, one way or the other. And I was going, I don't think a single sponsor of mine even, like, paid attention to that.
Yeah, I think, well, it is the internet, and it's ripe with experts, as we all know. But, like, so we think about frequency and reach, So did that 15 seconds of that weigh in, like, being realistic, there's 200 guys that have to weigh in, right? And co-anglers.
400.
So
400,
the
400
yeah, the tournament director is not able to give you the screen time that he would in, like, a Sunday at an Elite Series or whatever, pick your event. The reach just isn't there, which is fine. So it's one of those things where it's like, that's where you need the frequency. So I don't see the issue with it personally. So I'll speak then as just like, if I'm the sponsor guy, which I'm not, but if I were, then I just want the frequency. Like, I have your posts leading up to it. Like, I saw all your stuff. Everyone knows you're out there fishing, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm more interested in, like, what you have to say, or whoever has to say post tournament. Like, there's more reach of talking about why you didn't weigh in than if you just went and weighed in. So I think it's a short-sighted, my opinion is, like, it's short-sighted for people to think that. Like, I don't know. I don't understand it. I mean, I do understand it, but, if you're looking at frequency and reach, like, who cares? At the end of the day, it's like, you're getting 15 seconds. There's 400 people. Like, don't be a crybaby.
Well, it was weird too, because I put out a video for 20 minutes, and on that video, like, I put in fishing stuff. I was talking about how, I mean, I never even got to talk to you about it. Like, I spent an hour towing a guy in. I don't know if you even knew that. So I towed this guy, like, a pleasure boat, who got stuck up on some rocks. So I spent from like 2:30 to 3:30. I towed this guy in, but I showed some fish catches and, just whatever. But it was the guys on like that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You watched 20 minutes of why I explained it. I'm sure not going to explain all that on stage for 15 seconds, So, I mean, no one wants to hear that, right? And honestly, to me, it sounds like a big excuse as to why I didn't catch them. And I wasn't making excuses. I was just kind of explaining why. Everyone's like, hey, what happened to you? But yeah, it was just funny, because I was like, there's no, it would, to me, that was kind of that outdated way of thinking of I always looked at it as like these little patches on our jerseys, and we're up on stage and little things like that. And I go, I don't know who pays attention to that. I don't, but maybe some do. So maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't look at those little bitty things as this big, a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, in law enforcement, they call it the totality of the circumstances. So it's all the things as one thing. It's like in the 90s, think about it. Like, that's exactly what you had. Like, competition drove innovation, which drove sales, which is, everyone knows that. But look at the distribution. That's the real thing. It's like the only thing you could do. Like, I grew up as a kid, as like watching, Bassmasters on Saturday. Like, it was what I loved more than anything. But that was the place you got it. And then you could read the magazine, you could read whatever. And now we just have more distribution options. And I think what we have to at least be considerate of is, me as a consumer, if I go out and buy, whatever, a square bill, like, I'm voting with my confidence with my dollar. So as a brand, or as an angler, which anglers are brands, like, they're voting with their confidence with their time. So, if you unpack that a little bit and say, well, what is a brand? Well, that's what people say about you when you aren't in the room. So in the whole scheme of things, it's we have different platforms, and that's the deal. So it's like, it seems kind of just silly to get caught up on like, well, Todd didn't walk across the stage. It's like who cares? Like, if you're not going to win it, I mean, not for nothing, but if you're not going to win it, and who cares? Like, really? I mean, and I know you had to go. I don't know if no one knows that if you told them, but you had to go to that soccer game or whatever. I forgot. Maybe in football or soccer. I forgot. But
yeah, it was soccer.
It's like I would leave too, man. Like if I got to go, if I'm in a hunt, if I'm not going to win it, like I'm not going to sit there forever and ever. I'm going to the soccer game. Like my kids are important. So,
well, so
whatever.
I made a top 10 there the first time in the Bassmaster Open. I think it was the one Casey Scanlon won, I believe. And it's first time being there. And so I was in the top 10 for the first 2 days or whatever. What I mean by that is like I had a really good day the first day, and I caught them all on a frog, which was crazy on Table Rock. And then the second day, well, I caught them on what's now the Hybrid Hunter, but back then I had, the Bubba from Strike Park. So the same bait. And, everyone knows that company, that we license it out. So it's all great. So I caught them on those 2 baits and was doing great. And then the final day I did horrible. And I'll never forget how I got up on stage and and we were talking, and it was right in front of the, I don't know where they had it now, but we had to go to Bass Pro Shops there and we did it all. So they asked me.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. They asked me about like my final day or like the baits or something. And I was going, and I didn't do good, right? The final day I did horrible. And I go, yeah, I caught him on a frog the first day, and then this like shallow runner crankbait the second day, and today I did bad. And they're like, oh, do you want to, kind of talk more about it? And I was like, no, that's pretty good. And when in my head, I was going, the reason I was like that is I always found it if I got on stage and didn't catch him, and I didn't catch him at this event at Table Rock, not good enough to where I thought, but if I got up on stage and said, yeah, I'm throwing this, and this, and I tell everyone all these baits and all these things, this is what I used and all this. I'm like, if it was me, I'm like, yeah, I don't really care because you did so bad. Like that's not actually a good thing about your stuff. It's actually you're actually, kind of being to me. I was like, yeah, they're looking at it going, you didn't catch anything on that. That's not a good review. That's you're almost making a bad review and you don't even know it. I always thought that, man.
I never even thought about that. Yeah, I guess I see your point. It's like, but it's such an easy thing for, the guy to like the tournament host or the tournament organizer to be like, hey, what bait are you fishing? Like, it's a very easy conversation piece. So it's maybe not his fault. But
see, but these are guys, these are fishermen, like elite. I don't want to hear about the baits you didn't catch one. Like, I totally agree with that comment. It's I totally agree that I don't want to hear the guys that, because we hear it when we're in line and we hear these guys talking on stage and, they caught 2 fish or they did whatever. And you're just sitting there going, all right, yeah, come on, get off the stage. I mean, because I don't want to hear it either. I want to hear the guys who like, I want to hear what Chad did. Chad won the thing. I want to hear how he caught him. And so everyone else, I mean, guys in the top 10, yeah. But after that, I don't want to hear about some guy why you didn't catch him. Man, I caught him really good in practice, guys. And I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of us did. And we did horrible. And it's part of it. And we move on. And, we've all done bad. Every single person on this earth has caught him in practice and did horrible in the tournament. We get it. And it's not a big deal.
Have you ever, honestly, I thought about this the other day. How often, say you follow, and I'll follow like 20 tournaments a year pretty close. Like, how often are you really blown away by what the winner's doing? Most of the time, it's like basic stuff, just done better. Like, they make better decisions. Like, every once in a while, somebody will throw something that catches me off guard, or I'll hear about something sneaky. But honestly, a lot of times it's like, it's kind of basic stuff. They just make better decisions. I'm always waiting for that like silver bullet, and I feel like it doesn't happen often.
I think
sometimes.
I'm trying. So I'm real bad about not watching. I'm really bad about not watching stuff because, and the reason is even Andrew called me up today about might be doing something at the Classic, and I was like, man, I think I have a tournament that same day. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, like down here they put tournaments, like they don't care. So
Yeah.
every weekend, and I've always made this a big point about fishing. Let me sidetrack this. People love it when I sidetrack because I'll go in circles. I think the problem with fishing, as opposed to like say football, baseball, or basketball, or any major sport, is there's not a whole bunch of guys playing rec league football on a Sunday while whatever team is playing. Correct. So I mean,
Right.
I'm not a Cowboys fan, so whatever. But if the Cowboys are playing, no one in Dallas or who's a Cowboys fan is like, hey, I'm going to miss the game to go play this football league, this rec football league, right? But with us, the most of the true hardcore fishermen that watch tournaments are tournament fishing on the same days as these other tournaments. And so I always have seen that as a problem. So everyone's like, hey, did you see what was going on this past week? And I'm like, no, I was fishing a tournament as well. I had another event. And you see big events get put on other big events in fishing. So I'm real bad about not watching. I watch certain tournaments based on what lake they go to. Like if I've been to that lake and I know something about it, it's more interesting to me than not knowing anything about a lake. So I would be more interested in Table Rock as opposed to Bull Shoals, which I've never been to Bull Shoals. So could I learn something? Yes. I think you learn a lot more if you've ever fished that lake. But what I would say is I think now with LiveScope, I think it's somewhat more interesting, maybe not of how guys are viewing LiveScope with it. Regardless of whether you like it or not, I'm not saying during the tournament, but after, on how I think everyone in the country was amazed at what Tyler Yvette did at Okeechobee because no one
Yeah, it was
expected
awesome.
it. Right. So I think that one was by far eye-opening to people.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if the story's true. What they said was, he was up the river like looking for crappie or something one day and found them. But I think it's also just kind of it goes off the narrative. Like there's always a narrative. It's like anything else. Like I live around in the Southeast. I live around Hartwell and Chattooga and Lanier. It's like, what those lakes are. Like, kind of what the style is, the topwater thing and all the stuff that everyone does. But when somebody does something kind of left turn different, that's super cool. It just, sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. It's like, it's interesting to see how, I'm curious, like I wonder, like, if you looked at like 1,000 tournaments, like what percentage of them were won by something like way off the wall versus like the right thing just done better. That'd be interesting to know.
I think
I don't know the answer to that.
I think there was quite a few tournaments that have been won that way. I think so. You bring up like Bradley Hallman when he won at Lanier, did something different every day, and I don't know if you remember that when he won the tour event there, he was throwing a jig.
Remember one day he was on the south side, right? Wasn't he by the dam in that big marina on the south side one day?
Yeah. So because he had called me up in practice, and he said, "Man, are you seeing these big panda bears swimming around?" And I'm like, "Huh? What?" And he goes, "Yeah, these panda bears."
Perfect.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Man, them big spots sitting around everywhere." And I'm like, "No, I haven't seen anything like that. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Yeah, man, I'm seeing these spots in these marinas, and they weren't on beds, but they were sun and getting ready to." And I'm like, "Heck no, I haven't seen any." Then it made me mad because I was like, "Heck no, I hadn't seen anything like that." And I was
Where
like,
are you at?
Yeah, where are you at? And so he found this spot, throwing it, and caught like 25 pounds of spots on a jig. And then he went and did the whole marina thing on day 2. I don't know what he did on day 3, but then day 4, he said, I'm gonna squash all that, and I'm just gonna go up the river or by takeoff and just go throw a spinnerbait down the bank because of semi-release fish, and I think I can catch 12 to 13 pounds. And I will say, I think that was one of the ballsiest moves I've ever seen anyone do, is go, I'm scrapping all that, and I'm just going to come up here and catch this weight and do good. And he did. It's exactly what he caught. And I was like, "You didn't practice that, right?" He goes, "Nope. I just figured I could do it."
My brain says that stuff, but it never works out. I'm always like, I'm just going to go do this. wind's blowing, gonna run this spinner bait, but
Well,
not to that effect typically.
I catch. They kind of made fun of me on tour at times because I'd catch like big bags and then, or I do it all the time, even in Toyotas, where I'll catch a really big bag. A lot of times on the final day, or I do bad, um, or I do bad on the final day. It can go both ways. I've won a Toyota by catching like the biggest bag of the whole tournament on the final day when I was in like 9th or 10th. No, I think I was in 10th or 9th. Yeah, something like that. And it was because, I'll just go for it and see, like, not go for like the win. It's not swinging for the fences. I just like, hey, I got nothing to lose. Let me go see what happens. And a lot of times you can kind of do something like that. I don't mind, but it's hard when you're winning to do that. Like when you're leading the event, that is tough.
Hey, I don't know how. I mean, that's two different things. Like coming from 10th and going out in first. That's
Absolutely.
a different chemical thing, for sure. I think.
Well, so with all that being, so like everything's going on right now, and I heard like Jordan Lee announced that I guess he's going to go fish the Bass Masters. And what I really like talking to you about was these sponsors. You look at it, you have figured out how to make Black Rifle Coffee Company this, what I would say, and I've heard it from multiple people, and someone said it around you and you kind of smiled, right? Someone says, man, y'all are everywhere. And you're like, hey, and you looked at me and you're like, that's what I like to hear. And because that's your goal. And when I meet, they're like, yeah, maybe I haven't tried the coffee, but I see y'all around everywhere. And like, I think that's a big a compliment to you. But how do you look at that and then look at this fishing? Are we doing the same thing, or do you look at it differently?
No, we're definitely the same thing. So with anything, so you have to think about, like, let's talk about what we did in fishing. So I manage all the partnerships, but I love fishing, obviously. Like, I'm a fan of bass. And what we started with, and I think I saw Clint on here earlier, Clint Bartlett, this guy, he's awesome. Shout out Clint. But him and I went everywhere, and we would go to all these tournaments, and we would set up coffee in the morning, right? And we would just give out coffee at the boat ramp. Because from my point of view, like, where else would I rather be? Like, I grew up watching all these guys, and I wanted to just give out coffee. Like, it's blast off. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. And there was no other sponsors. There was nobody there. So for a while, I was just really giving coffee to anglers and tournament staff and some marshals and whatever. But over time, that picks up and picks up. So it's like, people knew, I think, once they met me and they met Clint, they met everyone, they knew, like, we weren't faking it. Like, we love bass fishing. I think about it every day. And, is that frequency staying in there. And like, we've had ups and downs. We're a company. Everyone does. Like, sometimes we get more budget, sometimes we get less. It's whatever. I don't control that. But we stay in there. And we're like, I think we have a good kind of bearing on, like, the things we support. Like, Black Rifle's philanthropic side is really, really well thought out and does a good job. So, it's just one of those things where people would be surprised to know, like, how little I actually have in fishing. It's just a matter of staying kind of true to what we are. Like, our only job is to sell coffee and support veterans. That's it. So, as we kind of grew and grew and grew, I kept just supporting those tournament trails, kept supporting the things. Like, where would I want to be? Like, I'm not super interested. We have to have paid ads and all that type of stuff. But me as an angler, like, I want to see boats leave at the Classic. I want to see the final day at an Open when somebody's, like, life's about to change. That stuff's interesting. So those are the places we were at. We were kind of in authentic places. And that's kind of true in other things too. Shooting, hunting, all that stuff. It's kind of similar. And you can't fake it. Like, you get outed. The game. Like, you can't go in there and fake it. You either love it or you don't. And if you don't, then do something else, I guess. I don't know.
But how does it compare? So you're in racing, correct? What are y'all all in exactly?
Well, I think about it like hunting, fishing, shooting, like tactical shooting, if you will, 2A, like our whole military side, which is our kind of our largest focus, of course. and then motorsports. And then kind of things below that, or there's other things we work in, but we're not like fully immersed in. Like we do some stuff with the UFC, we do some stuff, some rodeo stuff, we do some other things, but you know, a lot of it's those shooting, fishing, hunting, archery, 2A, that type of stuff.
Gotcha.
And motorsports. Motorsports
So
is one of the kind of early on things that's been around forever.
what about that? Is that, do they treat this stuff differently the way fishing is, or is it kind of just a different?
No, it's to dive a little deeper into that. So it's like all of these things are subcultures, right? So I mean, like our company was founded by a bunch of veterans and special operations guys, and you know that's a subculture. And I can't speak to that, but I can speak to like law enforcement. Like that's a subculture. Tournament fishing, that's a subculture. You and I talked about it. Like when tournament fishermen sit around, they don't talk about how many strands of purple was in their green pumpkin jig. Like that's stupid. That's not what you talk about. So motorsports, to piggyback to that, motorsports is its own subculture too. So it's got like millions and millions and millions of fans. You take like what Pastrana's doing or NASCAR or whatever, but the inside core like is really just another subculture, and it's a small group. So it's one of those things where, you know, you start showing up and you pass the sniff test and they realize like, hey, we actually, you know, we make our own coffee, we support veterans, like we do what we say we're going to do. And then over time you get kind of accepted by that core subculture, that core group, because we're not faking it. And then like everything else follows behind it. So motorsports is very, very similar to fishing because it's highly, you know, it's a highly specialized thing that not everybody's into. It's like, you know, who won the 2006 Cup championships? Well, unless you're a NASCAR fan, you don't know. So it's like this, you know, there's hardcore fans and kind of passive fans, but the execution marketing wise is the same. Really. I mean, it's almost identical.
All right. So this next question, I think this is, I'm 99.9% sure this is Clark. This is a great question. And I'll lead into this. So after I've had a fairly decent year this year, won a couple of the years, like, and when you do that, you kind of just get on a roll and everything kind of works out and you just kind of do your thing. Right. And it's easy to get kind of just rolling. And for me, I kind of stopped thinking. Okay. Like I'm not thinking like forward because everything's going good. And then Table Rock comes and I was really doing stuff differently. I was all this stuff, but I was doing stuff I wasn't really, it's not like I've been doing it for years, a lot of the stuff I was doing. So I get done with that and I'm driving home. You know, I'm sure a lot of people would think I was all upset. Even my wife, when she calls, she's like, hey, you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'll make it home, all this stuff. And then she was like, man, you're in a really good mood. And I'm like, oh, I'm in a great mood. And I left that without any money, but in the best mood ever, because my mind was like turning a million. I went and bought a whole bunch of stuff from Lowe's, like a couple $100 stuff from Lowe's to like work on things just because of my Strike King job. And like I had all these, like I have it all. I'm going tomorrow. And so I learned more from my mistakes, is exactly what Clark's saying. Like we learn from our mistakes, or I do. Bad tournaments, or I learn more from good tournaments most of the time. What have you, like, so you've obviously had some failed attempts. He wants like, what have you learned from those?
Failed attempts. I'm assuming he doesn't want to hear about fishing. Is he talking marketing or what's he talking about?
If I know Clark, it's 100% probably marketing, because like, remember when I told you is that I was more interested on the marketing side of what you thought than the fishing side, because even in the fishing side, just like you said, I mean, you even said it yourself, you rarely get, after a tournament, you rarely like, oh man, that's really awesome right there. It's like the same old thing. Okay, I already knew that. And you're not interested. This is stuff I'm interested because I'm working with companies, but I heard different things from you in our talks that I thought were different. The way that you thought was a lot different than the way I hear a lot of guys within the industry talk. That's why.
Okay, so I think I can speak to that. If he's asking about failed attempts and what I learned was the question, I think. So I'll talk about content. So I was part of I don't want to say who, you can probably figure it out. I was part of a large brand that launched in the fishing space in the last 10 years, we'll say. And as a content guy, like I'm a filmer. That's what I did. Like I loved making commercials. I shot TV shows. I shoot short films, like whatever. I love shooting just the most epic stuff I could shoot. So we got this big budget. And as I'm 38 now, I was like 20 something at the time. And as this young guy, I got this budget to go film all this awesome stuff. Well, who doesn't want to do that? That's awesome, right? So we're out there filming, doing these things. We're creating this content. And to preface this, remember there's earned and owned media. So put that in your head and I'll tell you this story. So we make all this epic stuff in the sunlight and the fish and the thing and the marlin and bass. Like we did all these TV shows, we did all this stuff and it was great. But we found that it wasn't really influencing sales that much. Like it wasn't moving the needle. And when we looked back on it, we realized that yes, we had a bunch of epic content, but we never had this like fully built out customer journey. So a customer journey is like it's like a triangle, you know, like you're aware of the brand, you're familiar with it, you're considering buying it, and then ultimately you purchase whatever that is, and then you become an advocate or whatever. So we were just entertaining people. The lesson was all I was doing was entertaining people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that stuff's sick." We're like, "Cool, man. Yeah, hell yeah, like we did that." But at the end of the day, like we were too dumb to realize that like that customer journey matters. Like you need to build a content and a funnel for everyone. Because when the time comes where I'm like, yes, I want to buy every hybrid hunter on the planet. How do I do this? Like that has to be as easy as it is to find the content. So the lesson I learned there was understand what each piece of content's job is. There's a model for it. And it's basically like you have earned media, which is stuff that we earned. So if you, which this is earned media, like we don't have a relationship. Like I don't pay you at all. Black Rifle doesn't pay you or anything. No. We just know each other, right?
Yeah, correct.
So
I just found you
earning the media. Right, yeah. Likewise. Well, I'm earning the media from you, right? So you are earned media. We are earning it as a brand. Owned media would be like I go out and put out a video, like one of our videos, and then I put it out. Well, that's two different things, you know, and each one of those things, like whether it's earned or owned, and then there's like paid ads in there too, but that all fits into that customer journey. So the thing that I learned was understand when something's not working and why, and be willing to pivot. Like, don't let your ego stop you from, well, me and Todd wanted to go make a great video and it didn't work. Well, the immature thing to do would be like, well, we're awesome. Why doesn't it work? It should work because we're awesome. Well, no, it didn't work. So what are you going to do to fix it? So professionals can pivot and say, okay, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? In that case, we were just entertaining people. We need to work on the customer journey. We did that and we fixed it, and to the tune of, I won't say the number, but millions of dollars in sales. So, you know, that was my biggest lesson. The short story is you're there to entertain people, but understand how a customer purchases things. And otherwise you're just entertaining people and you get stuck in this thing where it's like, well, I make awesome videos, so I should get paid. And it's like, no, sir, not so much.
Okay. This is the stuff that I got into it with you on. When I say got into it, you're on your computer and you had your list. I don't know what it was, your little program you had, right? Where you go and
top secret, Toddy.
Yeah. You go and stalk people, right? So you got this stalker thing that was great because
it's legal. It's 100% legal.
No. Yeah, I just want to let everyone know. Yeah, it was cool because
Puerto Rico.
I wish everyone would have. No one needs to know this because it was great. But yeah, you did this thing and you showed me some stuff that I kind of already knew about my deal. But it was finally, for once, you're the only person I've ever met that looked at it the same way I did on my own deal. I'm like, hey, I know what I have and I know what I don't have, right? I don't have millions of subscribers, but I also have, not that I care about that. There's a way to get that, but I wanted to do it the real way. And then there's like, okay, how engaged are you in the content? Things like that. Is it meaningful? Are you just getting clickbait views? And all that got tied up into this one thing that I'm having a problem fitting my head around. And what it is, and I've tried to talk to people and I don't think they really understand it, or no one's really given me a good answer. And what it is you just said that there's tournament organizations are out there trying to figure this out, in my opinion. They're trying to entertain, right? They're also in the entertainment, right? They have to like be real. And I think, and what I mean by that, just like you said, they have to be real in what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't think all these tournament organizations are being real all the time. But the number one thing I hear from them is views. And this is from everyone. Everyone considers views like the number one thing. Like from social media to YouTube to TV to what it's like this it's this one word that we never really cared that much about, but now it's everywhere. All we're doing is getting more and more views, and everyone's talking, oh, we got more and more views. However, I don't see a dollar. No one's making an extra dollar from that, like from the organizations. Like they're not paying any more. They're getting more and more views, and people are paying more and more into tournament entry fees and paying back less. So I have a little bit when someone now starts coming to me talking about views and impressions and things like that, and I'm going, that's great, man, but all we're doing is trying to get more and more, but we're getting less and less of whatever we're trying to get from them. So that's where I'm having a problem, because we're not going anywhere. Like we've been getting more and more views for 5 years, and it's the same.
Yeah, and like this will probably, I don't know, it'll probably piss someone off. I don't care though. But like views, if views is your like major metric of success, you're a lazy marketer. And please don't take offense to that, but it's the truth. Like a view is a great, we call them KPIs, like key performance indicator. But I see something about conversion. He's right. Like conversion's important as well. Like in a perfect world, you want a conversion to a sale that's like direct ROI. The reality is that that's not how everything works. So if I were to say, and I have a point to this, if I were to say, I'm just trying to use an example. Why did I buy? What did I buy? I bought Gerald's ball and out jig, right? Why? Because I saw it on he talked about it. That was a touch. And then I saw it at Bass Pro or whatever, right? That was a touch. Then I saw an ad for it. That was a touch, blah, blah, blah. So the point is say I buy the jig, or I buy a jerk bait, or I buy whatever, right? Whatever it is. Do all those people get credit for that? Because we say as marketers that it takes 4 or 5 touches to make a sale. That was 10 years ago. Now it takes 10 or 12. Social endorsement's huge. If Frank or Todd or whoever says this thing works, like that counts for more, right? Does everyone get credit for that? They don't. So what they'll say a lot of times is people call it top of funnel marketing, where it's like, if we just get the reach, like if we just get it out there, that's great. So they say top of funnel marketing, but that's lazy too. Because it's like, how about you have top of funnel, which is the reach, like the views matter, but have a built out customer journey where the rest of it matter too. So it's one of those things where if someone says, well, it's a good kind of baseline metric to say, well, this thing got this many views, and that's fine. And then it either goes left, where they don't really know what that means, or right, where they know what the conversion rate is, they understand how that fits into their customer journey, and they're using that to their best of their ability. And then there's a third category that's a little headier that says, like, pick a company. You do baits for Strike King, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you Strike King guy. Okay, so you make baits for. So we'll talk about Strike King, and I don't know those. I know Mark a little bit, but I don't know those guys super duper well. But if they're absolutely confident that their customer journey is built out, so when someone comes into the Strike King kingdom, their website, their anglers, their TV shows, that they're going to find out that what they've been told is true. They make good baits, blah, blah, blah. They're entertaining, like everything's right. They have customer service. You fill in the blank. If they're convinced, or they know they have a good system, they shouldn't worry about it. Then top of funnel's smart. Then you're smart, because now you're saying, I trust my conversion. I trust my company. I'm just going to put people out there and bring them to us, and we'll convert them. We know we will. But oftentimes what happens is marketers won't understand that conversion cycle or that customer journey. So then they're trying to find this silver bullet. And to go back to the beginning, like, it doesn't matter how many strands of purple's in your jig. Like, everything is about the basics. You have to have earned and owned media, frequency and reach, and a customer funnel. And you have to be able to pivot. Like, I work less on good things. That sounds weird, but the things that are going good take less energy. Like, I spend more of my energy pivoting and fixing things that aren't going good. And they don't always go good. Sometimes in your head, you're like, this is going to be awesome. And it's not awesome. It sucks. So you got to make it suck less, you know? So that's what I spend most of my energy on, is sucking less. What's this guy say? He says a relationship with the angler leads to the purchase of a product, not just seeing a random guy promoting something. Yeah, yes and no. I mean, certainly it depends. It depends, in my opinion, like, who is the angler, but it takes, like, it does take seeing something multiple times. In my brain, I think of it as like touches to just make that connection. Obviously, if some guy, you know, wins a Bassmaster Classic on a crankbait on a bridge that's red, like, they're going to sell a shitload of red crankbaits. I get that, because that's like a marquee level event and a high. It's like the Super Bowl, you know. But I think it's all about frequency. Again, it's frequency and reach. Like, there has to be frequency with it, not just reach. So it's long-winded, but that's what I think about it.
So, well, no. So while you were saying all that, I was thinking about, okay, I always have to put myself in my shoes, obviously, and because you were talking about, why did I buy a jig, right? A ball head jig from Gerald. So I think about, now, granted, since I'm with Strike King, I'm literally in our whole goal too is, okay, in our marketing scheme of or how we build baits or how we do anything, we're not going to build another 6XD. We got the best 6XD. We don't need a crankbait that goes 15 to 19 foot. We got it. And I think we got the best one, right? So I don't ever see us having to redo that anytime in the near future. I think we got the best jig. I think we got the best fit. So we have things. So a lot of times what we're doing is either trying to find the next best thing, which is kind of my job. And then we're trying to fill in holes. Now, the problem with us is we don't have very many holes, right? Because we've been around a long time, and every year we're trying to fill in holes of things that we don't have. So a lot of this stuff, I like, if I need something, right, I'm like, hey, Strike King, let's do this, right? We need to fill this hole. That way I don't have to go out and use another. So I'm good at there. So I rarely, and I bet you at the end of the year, I spend less than 400. 400 is a long reach. I bet you it's been less than that a year on new tackle, because I've been successful with what we have. Now, with that being said, if I was to go buy something, and Andrew's on here, right? So a lot of times the stuff we do is I'll go to guys I really, really know, or like, hey, have you heard about this? What do you think about this? So I am going to someone. I'm seeing, like you said, I'm hearing about it, frequency, but I rarely go to the guy who's talking about it. I'll go to one of the guys I trust, which is kind of like what I think a relationship with an angler leads to a purchase. I have a relationship with Andrew, and I have a relationship with certain guys, whether it be a Greg Hackney, a David Mullins, an Ish Monroe, a James Watson. I mean, at Table Rock, James Watson was like, hey, man, no one's around. Let me talk to you about something. So we have our guys we trust as well. I don't see the difference between, and I bring that up as my high school, a buddy of mine, my freshman year in college, we roomed together. We went to high school. We went fishing a couple months ago, and he introduced me to something. And he quit fishing for like 15 years, but it was someone I'm like, well, wait a minute. You're catching a bunch of fish on what? And I made him come down and fish with me. And from there, it did that. So I believe that relationship with anglers matter. Like you said, you still need to kind of hear about it. But then I think behind the scenes, we're all kind of talking around. Now, I wouldn't say behind everyone's back, but secretly like, hey, what's this thing about? What do you know about it? I think that goes a long ways. Kind of what you were saying is those two things. But I mean, I have to hear about it, but then I'm really wanting to hear from someone that I trust that maybe has used it. Yeah,
and to be clear, I think the relationship with the anglers are incredibly important. Like, I'm not saying that. Like, I think
Right.
I know that fishing at the very highest level is out of control hard. So for me, like, again, that's why I look at what are they winning. Again, I'm a nerd. Like, I'm not like most people. Like, I got a super big problem. Like, I love it, and I watch all the stuff, right? But I think you have to have that relationship with those anglers, but you still want that frequency. Like, I think authenticity is a powerful qualifier. So you get in there with those people that are authentic, that love it. But the frequency I'm not talking about is like with some like social media dude that nobody's heard of. Like, the frequency is for your brand. Like, there's a place for all of it. But I think, the relationship with the anglers is super important. And for me,
Oh no. I hope that just didn't happen to me. If not, he'll get back on. You ever get in one of those deals where you're right there to like drop the juice and then it just goes away? That's what went on, which is all right, because I don't know if y'all know, we were trying to get this on as quick as possible because I just spent time with him at Table Rock. But I think, I don't want to speak for him. I know he's hunting right now, and I think he's with a lot of the guys from Black Rifle Coffee. And I think I forgot where they're at. So they're all hunting. So I think, I think, I think that's going on. I had him on here, guys, and I'm sure he'll get back on. I had him on because I find his views on all this stuff really interesting, and maybe a lot of people don't. I get it. I think every single professional fisherman should listen to this. I think some of the companies maybe should look at this. He's in charge of a giant company that's doing things like this, and he's made it very, very successful. And I don't think he's spent a lot of money to do it. And so he's figured out a great way. I don't know if I have to invite him back again. Maybe I do. Let me do that real quick. He's figured out, let me see. There he goes. Okay, I'll send it back to him in case he needs it. He's figured out a really cool way of doing it, and he was really, really successful. Oh, he's back. Hold on. Got him.
I'm going outside on my cell phone.
I got you.
All right. We're back.
I randomly just talked about nothing. I was talking good about you. I didn't talk about how you were out there goofing around out there hunting and stuff.
I'm in Missouri.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I dipped out there, but what was I saw some other question I was going to answer, but I forgot what it was. Maybe Joe's question or somebody.
I'm looking. I kind of forgot because I had to go talk about something else. But we were talking about the reach, and then you were talking about the what. Here's what I'll say that I wanted to bring up, because there was two things I found interesting. Or one of the things I found interesting when we were talking is you have a select group with Black Rifle Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You have I think so. There was a couple of things you said too. A lot of times in the past, and I'm not going to talk about any sponsor in particular, because I'm not saying they're even mine, but I think what a lot of sponsors do is they have a budget and they're going, okay, we're going to get 12 guys to fill this budget, and we're all going to pay them $10,000 a piece.
Okay.
And you kind of said like, man, that's kind of I think I'm right. You said that's kind of the old way of thinking, because it's just like you're just throwing a number out there for whatever reason. And when you started talking about the guys that you had on with Black Rifle Coffee, I don't know what you pay them, could care less about that. That wasn't important to me. What was important was the fact that you were like, hey, each one of these guys I have for a reason. And to me, that was a lot more thoughtful than we're going to get 12 guys to do to do whatever they think it is. And we don't even know, we're just going to pay them all the same because it's easy. Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's accurate. So it's like a couple things there too. The first part, the easy part is yes, like with all the guys, we've had the same guys for 4 years, like the same crew, with the exception of one guy. And they all had some sort of form or way to do content, which was important because content is like currency. It's money that you can put in the bank. So I want people to be able to do the content. So, if they're not thinking about content, they just weren't for me. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying they're not great anglers or great spokespeople for brands. But for what I was looking for, and I just represent one company, I need that content. And kind of the flip side of that is what is something worth? Like that can get kind of deep, but everything is, if you look at it in advertising, we base it on what they call a CPM, or a cost per thousand. So what is that number worth? Well, everyone has their own opinion, right? So a lot of people, and there's even certain tournament organizations that'll say, well, I'm going to base everything I'm doing based on what TV used to say. Hold on, let me go in this barn. It's windy out here. That TV used to say, like, this is what something's worth. Well, I don't care what TV says. Like, what's it worth right now? Now that's twofold. So am I able to pay every angler that I have what they're worth? I'll be honest, no, because I don't have the budget for it. Like, I have guys that are worth more than I pay them, but they know that. I talk to them about it. Like, I'm not hiding it. I don't get a bonus if I don't spend the money. Like, my job is to sell coffee and support veterans. I get what I get and I spend it to the best of my ability. But I think, like, writ large, I feel like the conversation we should be having as, companies in the industry is, what is this thing worth? And it's easy to say, well, YouTube is not like TV. Like, you don't have to pay for YouTube, right? So people say, well, those guys are living rent free. I'm like, that's kind of a cop out. Like, I need to know what it's worth. I need to know, what do I value 10,000 people coming to my site? What do I value a coffee club subscriber? What do I value top of funnel, or these frequency things? I know what I value them at. So I'm able to, make very sound business decisions based on what they're doing. And content is like an amplifier, so it's just the reality. Like, we have to have that kind of always on mentality. Like, we're all a bunch of squirrels running around with short attention spans. Like, we need that constant thing, that constant, like, Todd's on today and this guy's on tomorrow. And, like, that's just the world we live in. So the ability to create content and deliver it and distribute it, like, that's really our problem with the industry, is we have not a problem, but we don't understand distribution because it's changing so much. And we're really bad at pricing what something's worth. Like, if we all stood together and said, this is what this stuff's worth, life would be better. But everyone's trying to figure it out.
So okay, so here we go, because I have my thought on this. I could be totally wrong, so I want to hear this.
Yeah.
To me, if so, I never had Black Rifle coffee in my life, right? And we're sitting at the table, and I don't drink coffee, right? But you bring me that can, that RTD, right? And you're just like, drink it. So I drank it. And it was good, right? My wife drinks coffee, remember, and I was like, yeah, man, I gotta, I wanted, for a present or whatever, I wanted to, like, get her a bag of coffee. And you're like, hey, don't worry, man, here's just one, go give it to her. So I was like, cool. So I brought it home. She's been drinking it ever since. I didn't think she was going to be big on the canned stuff, just because she's not a big, she's just different. I just didn't think she'd like that stuff. She's real big on what's in certain things. I've never seen her drink a soft drink before in her life or any of that stuff. So I didn't even think she'd get it. I was kind of looking at it, though, that, man, I drive around a lot. And so I'm sitting here going, I get tired a lot, sometimes randomly, because I don't sleep. Like the other night, I drank another one on the way home from Table Rock, because I knew I was going to be getting home really late. And since I don't drink coffee, I drank it at 8 o'clock. I now know that was a big mistake. I needed to drink it. I needed to drink it right when I started driving, because I got home at like 12:30 or 1, and I didn't go to bed till like 3, because I was still kind of wired from it, which was great. That's what I wanted it for. But she saw those. I didn't bring them inside the house because we went and left for Dallas, and she sees them in there like a couple days later. And she got mad at me because she was like, hey, you did tell me you had these things. I'm like, oh yeah, I was gonna get them out because you gave me some more of those RTDs, and those are those ready to drink coffees, guys. If you don't know what I'm talking about, they're in a can, cold coffee, and man, I don't know how many she's had. She's already started taking them, but I always felt that you giving me one, right? And then if I like whatever it is, and I start, whether it is talking about it or I have one and I give one to someone that I probably know, right, would probably like this, and that starts distributing that way one at a time, to me is way bigger of a deal than 2,000 people seeing Black Rifle Coffee on my jersey right here, that at a weigh-in stage, right? Or whatever it is. Just, I know the frequency of seeing it is a big deal. I get it. But I personally think, like you said, you going out and handing out free coffee at events is 1,000 times more important than frequency of seeing Black Rifle Coffee Company. I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but I think, man, if you have a really good product, and you said that, if you have a really good product, sometimes just getting in the hands of someone is all you need. You don't have to sell them on it. You can just get it in their hands one time and it'll do the rest. Am I like, how do you judge those two things of, you just said we're still trying to figure out which one is not more effective, but putting a price tag on that?
Yeah, so I think about it like the lingo they call is kind of like omni-channel. So it's one of those things like Joe Nickel makes a comment. He says the disc.
Hey, Paul, you
So
cut out a little. Hey, you cut out. Say that again.
Check. Hold on. Let me walk over here.
Because
I'm literally in a sketchy barn.
Yeah, ever since you left the house, it's been, I can hear you. I don't know if everyone else can. You're delayed on your phone, but I heard you loud and clear until that last part.
All right, I'm gonna walk back towards the house.
All right.
Is this getting better?
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, you're right. So Joe talks about like the industry pushing the top guys. And it's like, that's true. Like I don't know if it's right necessarily. Like that's kind of the old school and new school blending together. So to speak to your part, what I mean by that is like the frequency, you're right, is there. But honestly, it's just good common sense. So it's like, are we there serving coffee at the best tournaments? Yes. Are we doing contingency programs to help our anglers, the guys that we love? Yes. Do we give out a bunch of free coffee to people at events? Of course we do, because we want them to try the product. Like sampling's an important thing. So yeah, we do that too. So it's all these things combined. Again, that's like top of funnel stuff. And I know that, where Joseph's comments like pretty well right, not everyone wants the same thing out of fishing. And honestly, not everyone wants the same thing out of product. Like my only goal is if somebody's looking into what do we stand for? Like, do we give back like we say? Yes. Like all that stuff. Like same thing with the companies you represent. Like as people dive into those companies, I can't say what somebody wants out of fishing. Fishing's an individual sport. So some people are in it for what they're in it for. All I can do is make sure that I'm authentic. I have frequency and reach. I do what I say I'm going to do. And I provide the best product I can. And it kind of sorts itself out. But, where Joseph is right is if you're just pushing people to make the most content to try to get all the views, like there is a thing called advertising fatigue, and it's a real thing. Like if all I do is for the next 10 years is talk about how awesome a 2.5 square bill is, people are tired of hearing about it. It's a great crankbait. Like it's awesome. That everyone knows that, but there's an advertising fatigue that comes with that stuff. So, I don't like seeing some of those brands like kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I think it's got a life cycle. You can only use that so much before it stops becoming effective. And you've saturated your audience. So that's a whole nother story, but
that is another story. But when I was listening to the part about not about the life cycle of a product, but it was right before that. Golly, when you went into that whole other story, it made me think about, oh yeah, I don't even want to go down that road because I think about I started thinking about the fluff I see on social media of just like of different things. But yeah, I mean, I think at some point, oh, now I know what it was. I don't think people realize in fishing that there's two groups or three or four different groups, right? I mean, you got these tournament hardcore guys. Dude, I am the most tournament hardcore guy there is. I care less about everything else in fishing except tournaments. And when I started working with Strike King years ago with Phil, and when I had all these thoughts in my head about what I wanted in baits and stuff, and then he started explaining to me all about the sales of other baits, and I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so this sells this many hundreds of thousands of units, and this sells 6.3 million. And I'm going, I've never even thrown that from Strike King. He's like, yeah, I know, but you're not the target audience all the time. And so I'm real quick now, and I think a lot of pros. I think pros have a very big disconnect with other fishermen in general, other tournament fishermen for one, and then two, regular fishermen, just guys who want to just go catch fish. I have taught myself that there is a huge difference, and I'm trying my best because I relate really good with the pro tournament guy. I relate really good with the regular tournament guy because I fish against them. I know their struggles. I've been there. The regular fishing guy, that's the part that I have to like bring myself back to when I just go fishing for fun, which is not very much, but that's way more of the actual audience. And so you're right. I think there's a big disconnect there in trying to target that audience. I think we miss it as fishermen a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer. I would speculate again, like I sell coffee, which is a commodity. So
It's different, right?
easier. It's different. I'm not saying it ain't different because it is. It's different.
But it's different.
It's different. It is. I won't BS nobody. But I think about, the bait thing and like the whole scene, and it's like, if you can't control what somebody's into fishing wise or whatever it is, like, but you can be ethical, you can have a good company, you can make the best products, you can have customer service, you can have all those things. And I think we're starting to see that now too. And it's like, I don't envy that position. I've said it before. I remember talking once to Copley about it, and I said, man, like, how hard would it be to make the best pick something, the best spinnerbait or the best drop shot weight? Like, it's really hard. And we've had, I think we'll look back at 100 years and like see that the last 10 years was a renaissance in fishing. Like, think about the technology. It was 10 or 15 years ago, none of this stuff was around. Like all the fluoro and the hooks and all this stuff and the JDM influence and all these things, like, it changed really. I'm not even talking about LiveScope. I'm just talking materials. Like, it's gotten really good really quickly, which means it's gotten competitive really quickly. And, the guys that stay on top and keep doing great things, it's because they have those foundations. They run a good business, they're ethical, they have customer service, they build great baits. And more importantly, like, the one thing I wish I could see more of, and I'm guilty of it too, but like, admit if you're wrong. Like, if something's not great, like, pull it back. Like, it's okay. Like, we're all trying to be perfect at everything and to be the best. And it's like, I'm not winning the Bassmaster Classic. I know that. Like, I just want the best baits I can get for the money. And it's like, we're trying to achieve something that I think sometimes is unachievable. And at the end of the day, it's like, if you love fishing, like, support the companies you love. And honestly, I'm curious your opinion, but the baits aren't keeping us from catching fish. It's, you know what I mean? It's on us. So,
No,
like,
well,
there's really good products out there. So
I've always said this. I believe baits. Like, it's always funny. Like, hey, is that catch 'em? I'm like, every single bait that has a hook on there will catch a fish. Every single one. I do think there's better baits. I would say I put it like this. This is going down a rabbit hole, right?
Oh, let's go.
Okay. Every bait catches fish, yes. I think at some point in time, the fisherman or his knowledge catches more.
Mhm.
And then at some point in time, I always made the statement of going, well, why do you throw a Strike King swim jig? And I'm like, well, I have to throw a swim jig. And they're going, well, why is that one better than the other one? I didn't say it is. What I said is I have to. I'm going to catch them on a swim jig today. I have to throw one. I think the Strike King one is as good as that one. And all I can do is I'm going to show you what happens in my day. And all I can do is like, I'm showing you that I'm throwing one when I make my YouTube video. It's in a tournament. So I've got thousands of my livelihood is on the line, and I'm still going to throw a Strike King jig. And then I'm going to show you my results and what happens after it. And so I'm not saying I like you said, are they getting any better or any of that stuff? Baits don't necessarily get better because they're made better or anything like that. Most of them are all made in the same place. A lot of times a better bait is just different, and then it goes its time, right? It has a time limit of, okay, it was different, and now it's put right back into all the other ones that have been around for 5 years. And so, but like a 6XD, I have to throw a crankbait. I've never seen another crankbait outbeat a 6XD when we're fishing. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying, okay, I have to have them on. I can't sit there in a day and have 42 different crankbaits from 42 different companies and try to figure out in that day which one they're eating better, right? It's almost impossible. So I pick baits. I've fished with enough people in the boat with me to where I'm like, if I ever get outfished by someone like bad, and I think we're doing the exact same thing, then yes. And I have seen that happen, but
Sure.
it's not happening at a rate that much. I've seen different techniques, yes, but I'm talking about two of the same. It happens, but a lot of times, man. I mean, we've been in the same. I've been in the boat. Oh, should I talk about this? I've been in the boat with Zona on Raven. We were filming a show, and we were both cranking with 6XDs. I was wearing him out. He
Uh-oh.
just had a different color on.
Bad now.
Yeah, he just had a different color on, right? Another tournament we were fishing with, and I was my buddy was catching them like every cast, and then all of a sudden I start catching them every cast, and he starts freaking out. He's looking at me, and he was like, "What?" I was like, "Stop changing. You don't have to change a bait. We're throwing the same thing." And he's like, "Dang, you're really working that a lot slower, like reeling it." We were cranking too, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's just I wasn't all jacked up because he was catching them every cast. I just started slowing down. All of a sudden, they got off of it and they started biting mine." So a lot of times it's those little subtlety things. So I just think sometimes, like you said, it these people get caught up in a whole bunch of things that don't matter, and then they don't know what to do about it. But I look at those baits like that in the same way that, man, baits are just a tool. I'm trying to get the best one in my hands, and then I think it's up to me on how I use that tool.
Yeah, and I think about like I was talking with a guy. I won't say who, but I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he was asking me like, what would be your advice on content? Like, what type of stuff should I shoot?
Yeah.
I said, hey man, and we were talking about baits because I'm a nerd. Like I'll talk to you. We won't do it on this show, but as you know, we'll talk for 30 minutes about what's the best steel for a treble hook. Like I'm a nerd, but that's not super important. Like I get that, but I'm into it. But I know that's not what's super important. And this guy he's real techie too, and he was, wanting to get into that stuff. And I was like, man, to quote Larry Dahlberg, who's a buddy of mine, we talked about him, awesome angler. He said, content and like all that stuff, it's like soap. The harder you squeeze it, the further it flies. Like, don't think about it too much. The same with marketing. Use common sense. Like, what do you think people want to hear about? So, do they want to hear from me about tournaments? Probably not. Do they want to hear about you from tournaments? Like, you're a guy that makes a living fishing tournaments. Like, you literally make money, which very few people do, winning tournaments. Like, I want to hear about that. I want to hear about contingency stuff. I want to hear about how you save money on the road. Like if I'm a tournament guy, you can give me tournament information, right? Don't squeeze it too hard. It's going to fly further away. Like, you know, and it's easy content to pick up if, you know, whatever, like Jason Christie wins the classic flipping walkways on jigs. Great. That's easy content. Let's talk about the jig. Let's talk about it. But there's other things too, you know? So it sounds really basic, and I'm not being evasive, but like it's common sense. Like,
well,
something feels right, do it. And honestly, you have a free platform. Like I could go out right now and talk about whatever. Like I could talk about sweet wood piles in Missouri. Like nothing stopped me. Like free platform. And if it's interesting, here's where people are going to get heartburn. If it's interesting and it's good, people will vote with their confidence by watching it. And if you're not getting views, yes, there's algorithm things. I know, I get all that. But generally speaking, if it's good, you get views. And if it doesn't, you don't. Like, what a tremendous lesson for all of us anglers. Like, oh, I've been throwing this whatever all day and I'm not getting bit. Well, yeah, because it sucks. It's not the right time. If you make content and it's not working, it ain't the content. It ain't the platform, man.
yeah. So I agree with you, but now here's my question. Okay. I guarantee you that I don't have to ask Clark Green was on here earlier. I don't have to ask Clark. I don't have to ask Andrew. I don't have to ask Bradley Holman, Matt Steffen. I don't have to ask anybody who's ever done a YouTube video. And I guarantee we can all say the exact same thing. I think my Alabama Water Series and Deep Water Series are probably by far the two most informative, learning, whatever you want to call it, about bass fishing that I've ever done. And it's got traction, and the people that watched it loved it, and I get all that. I can also go do a video and I can clickbait it about this certain bait and never get out on the water. I can say all these things, but it's not exact. You know, I can make it all like I can fish. We can do a really good job of building this all this up. Fishermen have been doing this for years on TV, right? They build all this stuff of like, okay, well, I'm throwing this out there and the fish under the water are doing this, and they paint this whole scenario. And to be honest with you, I always laugh and go, man, you're listening to this guy. You do realize that guy, a buddy of his told him where to go fish that day, and he caught all those fish on that, and he told him what to go throw. Right. And so he's over there telling this big spill, and everyone's like just eating it up. And I'm sitting here going, that's not true. None of that is true. And y'all love it. And then I try to show them like, okay, I show them from start to finish of if you really want to go figure out how to fish, not just this gimmick thing. It's not a gimmick, but it might not really work where you're at. I'm trying to show you actually how to go catch a fish and what I'm looking for and all these things. And yet I'm telling you, and get 10 times more views on something that's just not that I clickbait it and I talk about it and it looks good because of the thumbnail, but there's no substance to it all. And I think a lot of stuff on YouTube, there's not a lot of substance, but yet it gets the views. So how do you go about managing those two things of what you said? How do you say pivot, and I agree with you on that, but I don't want to pivot away from, and you also said, hey, by the way, Todd, you got to put your ego aside. I can put my ego aside, but I don't want to pivot away from the truth. How about that?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. So the thing is this, like you said it in there. If me and you are, say we're working, we have whatever bait company, and the only metric we have for success is views. And our boss says, Paul and Todd, you have to get views. The content that I'm going to align ourselves with, if that's what we have to do, is absolutely not the best type of content for our fishing company. Because real anglers like specific content. And here's something that sucks for us as a what I'd like to think I'm a real angler, like the real meat and potatoes. like tactics, mechanics, strategy, the things that make you a better angler and let you catch more fish, they don't get that many views on YouTube. Shocker. That's a fact. Some do. Now, I know it's all relative. Comments will probably say, but. Now, there's a bunch of fishing content to me that is not interesting, but it gets a lot of views. So if what you want out of it is views, is that wrong? I'm not saying either one's wrong. I'm just saying, again, we have to use common sense and say, okay, well, this video of this like guy fishing in a sewer pipe or whatever, it may have gotten 10 million views, but is it my consumer? Is it affecting sales? And it either really is or it really isn't. And if it really is and you're ignoring it, then that's on us as marketers. But if it really isn't, then the views are just part of it. Like it's not the totality of the circumstances. So, it sounds simple and there's no metric for it, but it's just common sense to say, okay, well, am I interested in a video that talks to my core consumer that gets 10,000 views? Yes, of course. I get pitched, for the record, like I get sent an email about sponsor my thing 50 times a week. Okay. So I'd like to think at this point I have a pretty good like understanding. I'm sure I've missed some opportunities and I don't have budget for everything, but views is not the first thing I look at. So it's just like real kind of
But Paul, that's why I have you on. But I'm telling you, I don't think everyone thinks like you. And that's what's frustrating, because that's why I found this whole thing interesting with you. I mean, I believe you. That's what's tough is I think a lot of us agree with you, but I'm not saying everyone else does. And that's the hard part is I think we've been told, you remember when I said earlier, views, views, views?
Yeah.
It's getting shoved down our throat and we're going, but a lot of times when you want to get views, you go away from the core of who you are and what I believe in. And so I've tried not to do that. I'm not going to change, because if anyone knows me, people are starting to realize I don't care that if the majority of people do that. I'm still going to do my thing, but it is hard on us because of that mentality. Because I agree with you. That's why I have you on and not everyone else. I don't want anyone else on because I don't think I have the same thought process.
Well, and think about this, like, so, and everyone in their comments, or whoever is listening, I don't know, there's people listening, obviously, but what a lot of people are thinking is, well, this view and that view, and like they disagree or agree or whatever it may be, right? But think about, if you're the marketing guy, what is the easiest thing to track with this? Views.
I know.
Elementary. So it's like, if I don't really understand something, human nature is, if you don't understand something, you either A, avoid it, or B, belittle it, or like get away from it, right? You just talk crap about it. So it's one of those things where I wasn't born understanding all of it. I made mistakes and I learned what worked and what didn't work and all those things. But I think it's a little short-sighted to just say views, 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 views without the rest of it. Now, if you were to come to me and say, hey, I'm Todd and I'm selling baits and I want views because I want top of funnel marketing strategies because I trust my customer journey with my bait company. And as long as you put customers into my ecosystem, I'm going to sell them. Therefore, views matter to me. I would say, yes, sir, you understand this game. And I agree with you. But if you just say views, 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 that way I can go back and say, well, I spent this much and then I got this many views to your boss. You don't understand the game. And it's not hard to understand. So, and is that success? Like, I mean, the truth is this, and this is, I'll get into it. I don't care. When you get so large, like you could create, Black Rifle is a good example. We could create our own traffic if we wanted to. Like Black Rifle has millions of followers. We do billions of impressions every few months with a B. That's a lot of them. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to, we could create our own traffic. And if views were all we cared about, we could be successful with that metric. But what would happen is, if we weren't very careful and our egos went unchecked, we'd start creating content that our customers didn't want. It would create a disconnect. It would be the very thing that we don't want, which is becoming lame. So companies now, like everything is getting bought up, like Pure Fishing and everything, all these companies, right? They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I hope, like, it's my hope for angling that they don't lose their souls. It's like when you start to be able to create your own traffic, it's like you have to have a really, really good idea what your customer wants. Like, it's a fine balance of like, don't just entertain them, because we've learned that story, but don't just make product ads either. Like, that's
Right.
earned and owned media comes in. Like, you have to understand this stuff. Otherwise, like, to me, it's like you're playing with, I'll paraphrase. So a lot of companies will hire a social media person, and that person is typically lovingly the least qualified person at the company. They're often right out of college, right? Which, nothing against it. We all had to
Yeah.
learn. And they say, well, you're young, so social media, so you're going to do it. Do you want the person that knows the least about your company, that knows the least about business, talking to your customers directly? Like, I don't. So I never understood that. It's like, this thing that we're doing is a direct connection to everyone, you, Black Rifle, Striking, everything. Like, you can speak directly to your customer. Like, you owe it to yourself to be honest, be authentic. Like, don't BS people. Like, we know, and I think that's the content I gravitate to, is like, don't sell me. Like, if you tell me, if you're a Strike King guy and you caught him on a Vision 110, like, tell me. I'm not buying more Visions because of it. I'd buy more Strike King. Like, who cares? Like, most anglers buy all of everything anyway. Like, that's the truth. Is the guy
Right.
comments, me, I don't get deals on baits. I buy them retail. And I buy everything. I have everyone's baits. I want to know people are legit, like, authentic. And they tell me.
Mhm.
And I think most people are that way. But, it's one of those things. Like, I think we'll look back in 5 years and realize that we should have figured out what these views and what this media was worth sooner. It's not unachievable. Like, if we can land on the moon in the 60s, we can figure out what a view is worth and deploy a marketing strategy against it.
So I'll talk about this. I don't know if I've ever publicly talked about this. I'm not going to go too dive in. You said that's interesting. You said, and I agree with you that I would say a lot of the marketing guys are the youngest guys
Mm-hmm.
because they know social media,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't really. What's that? What's that Ted Lasso? Was it the Ted Lasso thing, or what was it? Someone go, no. It was Bill Burr. Bill Burr said something about doing something. He goes, yeah, I've watched football for 40 years. Doesn't mean I should be an NFL coach. Right. So just because you're on social media a lot doesn't mean you should be the head of marketing for all social media, right? Just because you know how to use it. There's 12-year-olds that know how to use social media better than all of us at times, right? So I find that interesting. But then we ran into this problem when and when we started the whole YouTube thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were seeing a different kind of connection, and it was really cool. Like a lot of these guys they subscribe a lot. I almost know, almost know them as well. There's guys on here that are watching that I've never met them, but it feels like I know them because I've communicated with them a lot. And it was cool. And then we started seeing this like connection outside of our tournaments, because we've all talked about now that a lot of us, when we're driving around or we show up somewhere, no one's going to sit there and come up to me and go, hey man, good job at the last tournament you just fished. They all say, hey man, liked your video the other day, and they'll talk about that stuff, which I'll be honest with you, I like it better. You don't have to follow my what I'm doing at Toledo Bend next month. I don't blame you, right? But they'll pay attention, and we started seeing that different connection with people, and we I mean it. Guy, we don't talk about this, but like it was pretty cool. But then you get the same companies with the same marketing guy for the last 30 years, and we're like, hey man, I think we figured, not that we figured something out, but like there's this whole other possibility over here. And they're sitting there and go, hey, but why didn't you? Like I said, no sponsor said this, but it would almost be like, hey, did you have your jersey on with your shirt when you walked across the stage? And I'm like, yeah, man, listen, no one's ever sit there and said, hey, cool emblem on your jersey, right? That's why I bought something, or that's why whatever. Like, I didn't reach anyone back then. I just think that was the freaking caveman way of thinking. And that's why I made that video about that. And then you got this other way. And I think there's still a lot of guys that haven't like dove all into it. And you're right. I think they're diving into it now, like 6 years, 7, 8 years too late. And they have no idea how to put a price tag on it.
Well, we said before, and I want to touch on something too in just a second, but we said before that content is currency. So to be clear, like I don't envy the professional tournament angler's position. Like again, like somebody in the comments has joined late and thinks like I'm just some marketing nerd. Like I
They
love bass fishing.
they'll go back. They'll go
Yeah.
back and listen. They
I
should.
love
If
like
it's late, if y'all guys are late to this, go back and listen to this, because I mean, I think you'll get a Paul's got it.
but like I love, nothing would make me happier than payouts to be higher, than all true pro level tournament guys to be able to make a great living and do what they want to do. Like if I had a genie 3 wishes, it might be one of them. But the reality is it's our job, or it's your job, it's tournament anglers' jobs to make revenue however they can. You know, back in the day, it was get on TV shows, win tournaments, and go do speaking engagements. It's evolved. Things evolve.
Mhm.
Content is currency. It's something you can put in the bank, and you can capitalize it like 100%. And you know, I would be discouraged trying to start now. Like this is a fact. If you would have started 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, was it easier? Unequivocally, yes. 100% it was easier to get on YouTube, pre all the algorithms and pre all the stuff and all the kind of like shadow banning and the bullshit. Like it was way easier. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't start. Like we have distribution options. And I think, you know, linear TV's on the way out. Like it is. That's a fact, not an opinion. But I think it's your job, it's everyone's job to get on everything they can. Why wouldn't they? Like your job is media coverage. And I think about 2 things I want to share that kind of been popped in my head for a little bit. Anybody that's thinking about any brand, so I've done this work for brands for a long time, but anglers are brands too. Like you're a sole owner, proprietor, LLC, or whatever you are. And this is the deal. Your brand is what people say about you when you aren't in the room. That's it. So I ask people, and the reason I'm saying this, and I'm going to tell you the answer to both of these things. I'm going to save you a lot of mistakes and a lot of money and a lot of heartache and a lot of like, why is this not working? I've sat in all these meetings with what I think were some of the smartest minds at some of the biggest companies around. And they say the word lifestyle, lifestyle and brand a lot. And I want to unpack that for everyone that's still listening. This is very, very important. First, I would say define those things. Nobody ever does well. So let's do it. Let's do it now. Your brand is what people say about you when you aren't in the room. And what I want everyone to do is write that down on the wall. What do you think people are saying about you when you're not in the room? And if you don't know, or if you're a clinical narcissist, then ask somebody and write it down, right? And is that in line with what you think it should be? And if it's not, then there's steps to get there. The second thing is lifestyle. And I'll tell you a very easy way. If you look at your content that you put out, your Instagram photos, your things, your stuff, if people want to be there, that's lifestyle. If they don't want to be there, that's not lifestyle. So everyone that's watching this thing wants to be doing the things we're talking about. They're part of our brand. Like those are those guys, right? That's lifestyle. Now, for people that don't know, or if you're having a hard time understanding, what do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room? Don't sell yourself short. Don't be like, oh, he's a good guy. Like everyone wants to be a good guy, right? Like be specific in what is your brand. Black Rifle, we serve coffee and culture to people who love America. That's our brand. We know it. We do it every day, every single day, right? So how do you find that? I'll save you a lot of heartache. Here's how it goes. In 5 years, there's going to be an article about you. Not necessarily you, but say it's you or anybody listening to this right now. And it's going to talk about the things they did. So there's some guy right now or kid or whatever, say they want to be a tournament fisherman, and they're about to fish one of the pro series. In 5 years, there's going to be an article about you and your rise to the top. what is the title of your article? Whatever the title of that thing is, that's the thing you should hone in on as your brand. So 5 years ago or 10 years ago when Black Rifle started, the mission was simple: sell coffee and support veterans. That's what we want to do, right? And then it kind of evolves to, promoting the American dream through hard work and venture, selling coffee and supporting veterans. Like, it will evolve. But think about, in 5 years, what do you want the title of your article to be? And then write that thing down on the board and write down what people are saying about you when you're not in the room, and change their damn mind. Like, if you are who you say you are, like, don't waver from it. Be consistent with that. That's the secret to the whole thing. Like, that's the sauce. And there's no like secret system, and there's no like measurements or metrics or KPIs. It's like, what are people saying about you, and affect it, But what I'm talking about, that article, it's called a value proposition, or we call it a value proposition. But why? Like, some people in sales, I'm not a sales guy, but they call it the elevator pitch. Like, why should I care about Todd Castledine, or why should I care about Strike King or Skeeter Boats or whatever, sun-kissed orange juice? It's anything. That's the ultimate. That's the top of the food chain for, like, everything we do revolves around that. Like, even at Black Rifle, we have tremendous opportunities, and we ask, like, the first question: does it sell coffee and support veterans? And if it doesn't, as simple as it is, you gotta shelf it. Make sense?
No, it does, because I'm glad that I've done. I think my followers would say that I haven't. I think maybe I've gotten better.
Read Hayden Green's comment. You tell me.
Well, so I think those guys will say that from 3 years ago to now, I don't think I've changed. I would think that I don't think I've changed one bit. And how, like, I've always said I'm not going to like sit there and go try to get clickbait or do these different things. I'm still going to try to make the same stuff. I've tried to get better at how I make it, but I don't think I've changed about how I've tried to do things.
That's just evolving, like getting better at YouTube.
Correct.
Like, dude, I'm not good at YouTube. Like,
yeah.
I'm not a YouTuber. Like, I envy all the people. Like, I look at, oh God, I'm drawing a blank. Look at Pangarak. Like, that kid is shooting Luke Duncan, the list goes on and on, Mercer, all of them. Like, I don't envy having, like, at this point, you're kind of obligated to keep putting this content out. Like, I get it. It's hard.
It is very hard.
It's hard. And you have lives and there's things going on and, like, whatever. Like, I get it. It's hard. But all of you guys, I think the common denominator would be, like, as we all do, like, we care for the sport and our customers. Like, you have a voice, you have a platform, like, use it. And, it's an evolution. You'll get better and better and better at it. But, I agree with you. I don't think people are, if people are selling out,
Well, I remember when we first started, and I didn't have, like, I've said it before, when I started YouTube, it was not my intention to start YouTube. I zero of it. We had to do it for the tour, and I had this footage, and I was so dumb about doing anything like that I saw, you get this, I didn't even know what a terabyte was, right? So I didn't know what a hard drive was. Right. And so when I was making videos, someone was like, "Hey, you're going to fill up your computer." I'm like, "What does that mean?" Because I had to go buy a computer. Right. And so I was like, "Hey, what's this?" Okay, well, YouTube, I can just put videos that I think are cool somewhere that I can go reach someone your day. It was literally my own hard drive. I use YouTube as a hard drive for the first couple of videos I ever made. Like, that's insane that I don't even, that's funny. And then I was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty cool what happened." Because I'm gonna get to what you just said. I was like, "Oh, this is really cool what happened. I want people to see that." And that's all it was, is I just wanted to see what was, like, some of the things we started that were cool. That's where the Bass Singer Therapy started with me, Andrew, and Holman. And I was like, "Hey, man, this isn't a production thing. This is I bet you people would like to hear what we're all goofing around talking about, the night before Bassmaster Open. That's exactly where it started from, is just turning the camera. There was nothing like doing anything like that. Along the way, though, you see people, when I say this, they get more successful if you're looking at it from a view standpoint. And there was a lot of talks always between a lot of people that were like, man, what if you did this? And I was like, I will never do that. I don't care if I suck at YouTube and I never grow anything. I was like, if I put out a video, I want to always, I want to be proud of that video. And more importantly, and I apologize for followers, don't take this the wrong way, that I sure wanted my peers to not look at me in a different way. So I wanted guys at the top level that knew me. They're like, oh, good, Todd didn't sell out. He's putting stuff out there that's actually good, not to like just get views or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, from us doing the Bass Singer therapy and then starting kind of doing other stuff, there's been some talks about me doing a podcast and stuff. And to be honest with you, I was like, I don't know. I don't really know if I know enough people that would be, I don't know. I don't know what to think. And then all of a sudden, like I said, it's weird coming home from Table Rock after talking to you, because I was like, dang, man, I need to get, this would be perfect. And I don't care. And to be honest with you, I'm not looking at how many people watch this or any of that. There's going to be a couple people that are probably going to be thanking me for this video over anything else I've ever done, because it was something that I was interested. And then, Jamie was there, and listening to Jamie Caldwell, who's part of Black Rifle, and he's part of Strike King, right? But me and Jamie have never got to hang out. And I was going, yeah, Jamie, hey, man, when you got time, we're about to do this. And I've slowly and surely, I'm like, hey, man, I just think I've got a small little platform. And I'm like, man, I think people need to hear some of these interesting people I know, because if I find you interesting, doesn't matter if 2,000, 5,000 people do. I think there's going to be some that are going to be like, really watch this video and go, this is really cool stuff. And I think obviously you're getting that from people. I mean, there's people out here thanking you for being on here, because I guarantee a lot of people are, are happy you're here.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I say, I struggle personally. Like, I love marketing, obviously, but it's one of those things where, like, I love fishing. Like, I'm a nerd, man. Like, I think about it every day, and all fishing. I mean, I love bass fishing, obviously, but I do it all, and I'm torn constantly. Somebody asked me, actually, I just got a text from a guy that's listening right now, and he said, talk about about non-endemics. And I said, okay, he some other stuff. The truth is this, like, we're non-endemic. Like, Black Rifles, I guess, would be like, people drink coffee, we're a commodity, but we're not a lure bait boat outerwear company. And the truth of the matter is this, is like, yes, Black Rifle's big, but I have all these non-endemics have like subletted marketing budgets. My fishing budget is really small, like, truthfully, compared to like the whole marketing budget. And if you go beyond even Black Rifle to like whatever, like, think about like the old FLW days, like Kellogg's or something, right? The reality is like, and this is painful to say, but like, sometimes fishing, like tournament bass fishing, just isn't big enough to warrant the energy. And it kills me to say that. But that's why a lot of non-endemics are gonna, I think it would take the right proposal or package to come around, but they're gonna look at the size and it's gonna be immediately disqualified to say, okay, well, yeah, I mean, there's billions of anglers, but this is too small. And that hurts, because these guys, they're putting their money, ad dollars, into much larger spends in the ad exchange, in these places where it's just easier than dealing and having to understand this kind of scene, this market, if you will. What I think is coming, though, in the next 5 years is, as people start to create their own content, not unlike that's happening here, these larger non-endemics are going to realize that there's these, subculture, these communities are very lucrative. And if they do the right thing, and if they stand for the right thing, and if they're not just, lame, then they can be very, very, very profitable. You look at what Toyota's done, right? And they've committed a bunch of money, and they've been consistent with bass fishing. And I know guys, you're one of them, that drives a Toyota because of contingency money and because their commitment to fishing. So I'm not arguing the efficacy of like non-endemics in the space. I just think I don't think, I hope, my opinion is that I wish we could present a different model. Like if I were Bass or MLF or something, I would present a different thing to sell to the non-endemics. It's not easier. I can go to the ad exchange and buy easier stuff. I can do bigger deals, but it's the right type of people. Like, it's our people. It's the right type of people. And going in there and saying, "Oh, we're going to knock your socks off," like, no, maybe not. But do we want to be around really good people and a really good thing? The answer is, I don't think we're there yet. I think in the next 5 years, we will see larger endemic players that come in and say, wow, like, collectively, this is a great space we want to be in. But right now, we're still trying to sell the old model, and we got to move on. We got to get.
Well, I'm glad you said move on. I'm only doing this to protect you. I could have you on for another hour. You told me you would be on here for 1 hour, and then
I got
it's an hour and 41 minutes. And I know what you have to go do. And I know that you're the type of guy that is being super generous with your time, but you're out there with a bunch of dudes about to go shoot and hunt. And I know you're basically the only one out here while everyone else is getting ready to go. And I know you got to go like sight in your gun again and do some other stuff. So I don't want to cut you off. You just said, hey, I can only do it for an hour, and you've
actually I did my. And so, quick notes, shout out Lucas Oil. I'm here at Lucas Oil Place. They have a big veterans hunt every year, and they, that's a good example again of a big company doing a good thing. And kind of ties into the non-endemic thing. Like, I think it'll come again. I just think that the organizations tend to try to sell the old news, like what used to be. Like, if it me, and I'm not saying it would work, because I've screwed up plenty of stuff. I'm an idiot. What do I know? But I just think, like, if you told me I could reach a whole bunch of people that were really passionate about something and listen to their colleagues and their friends and their fans and all that stuff, and you could influence sales, like, Toyota's not been wrong. So I think it's coming. Like, I think eventually non-endemics will look into it and say, hey, what's going on? Like, what are we doing here, and why we're interested in it. And honestly, like, well, I'll say it, I don't care.
Well, and that's why I wanted to stop you, because I think that's a whole nother conversation. And I want to have you, I want to talk to you again, because when you're probably a little bit less, we were trying to get this done quicker, sooner than later, just because of the timing of everything. But we could get Watson on or Jamie on too, and maybe we'll stay on track with Watson. But I wanted to stop you there, because I think that's great for the next time, because I want to have you on again and talk. And I want to really dive into like how that would go about, like what, because I think I'm with you. I think we're selling them the wrong thing. And that's what I kind of wanted to dive into. But
yeah, well, let's get into that. That'd be interesting. We'll save it for the next time, but it's, that's totally that's a big ego check conversation. Like,
I know.
Have that. Like, I
like that
thing. And like I said, I appreciate you having me. And remember, like, I know you and I have talked about it, but that stuff we talked about before is so important. Like, your brand is what people say about you when you aren't in the room. If you don't know what your selling point or value is, whether you're an angler or company, what is the title of your article in 5 years? Like, save you a $20,000 brand exercise. Like, figure out what you're all about. And there's things that will have a life cycle, and drama and whatever, like forward facing sonar controversy won't last. So, like, think about what is the title of your article, and stand for something. Like, what is that thing? And, like, don't take no for an answer. Like, be bold, launch branded content, and
in 5 or 10 years, people are going to be telling you or other people, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. Man, I wish I would have. And then 10 years after that, somebody's going to be saying to that person, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. Like, send it. What do you got to lose? You have a free platform.
Gotcha.
What's that say? I agree with Paul. Truly shame the best roads. Yeah, we'll say I'm gonna shelf that till the next one.
You can't listen. You can't just read comments. If you start doing comments and questions, which I love. This is why I like going live, because if we just sat here and did comments and questions, we'll be here for 9 hours. Because that's why I like the live show so much better, because interacting with these guys is great. Because they bring up so much good stuff. You don't ever need topics when you go live. Like the guys watching.
So in case you didn't notice, my wife says there was a meme that was like, being married to someone with ADD is like microdosing on Wikipedia or something like that. But I get stuck in the comments and I'm like, oh yeah, like.
Well, I get where I don't even know where it is. I get stuck in the I'm sure it's somewhere here about here it is. I get stuck in this Todd ranting. So, because I can rant about something great. Although I kind of do it in fun, because I'm a pretty laid back guy. I don't really take too much stuff serious, but I do like ranting about stuff because it's funny. But listen, I don't want to keep you longer. I know you got to go hunt and shoot. Hey, stay on real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Appreciate you.
All right.